Good evening, everyone. To those of you who have joined us on live stream and also to our participants this evening, my name is Susan Stannard. I'm the Senior Strategic Land Use Planner at Glenquarry Council. The meeting tonight is to discuss the reclassification of two council properties. The first one being the property name Calwalla at Sheepwash Road in Glenquarry. The second one being at Burgess Street in Bundanoon. We'll deal with each in turn. I will introduce to you the facilitator for these meetings, which is Mr. Ian Sinclair. I'll invite Ian to introduce himself and then I will introduce the first property we're going to discuss. Good evening, Ian.
Good evening, Susan. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ian Sinclair. I'm a town planner. I have been town planner for 35 years. I had 13 years in local government, 3.5 at Glenquarry, and another 9 odd at Wallandilly Council, as well as Forbes and Orange councils. I've been a consultant for 22 years, the last 22 years, and I specialise in doing strategic planning for local councils in rural areas, as well as
I've lost the stream.
Is to chair, sorry about that, to chair the proceedings, the public hearing, and I will be listening to the submissions that are made by the people that are wanting to talk, and then I will be preparing a report that goes to the council that will be considered by the council when it's considering the report on the reclassification of land.
Thank you very much, Ian. So the first property tonight is the property named Calwalla, which is at Sheepwash Road in Glenquarry. Now, Calwalla it forms part of the management of the Robertson Sewage Treatment Works, and the purpose of the reclassification is to seek to provide some compatible agricultural uses in association with that land. No one has registered to speak with regards to Calwalla. So if we could just note that we have included Calwalla in the public hearing, but we have no speakers for that property. So in that case, I'll move straight on to the other site, which is a closed road in Burgess Street at Bundanoon, which is land on either side, and the closed road are all owned by council, and land on either side is used by a number of community groups, including the Bundanoon preschool and the Rural Fire Service. And so the closure of the road was to enable those users to have a bit more space for their activities, but this can't achieve unless the land has been reclassified from community to operational. So Ian, we do have one speaker tonight, Mr. Christopher Wilkinson from Bundanoon. So I'll hand over to you and to Christopher to discuss this matter. Thank you, Ian, and thank you, Christopher, for agreeing to take part in the public hearing. It's good to hear from you.
Thank you, Susan. So, Christopher, I believe you wish to speak on this matter.
Yes, thank you, Ian. Shall I begin, or do you want to say something first? No,
just please continue.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I wanted to draw your attention to my written submission that I submitted, I think it was on 5th April, and that largely speaks for itself. And I hope that you found the submission, and people generally find the submission informative. The purpose of that submission is to highlight certain features of Burgess Street in Bundanoon and the street's current use, with a view to assisting the fullest consideration of the proposed reclassification of the land. In particular, the purpose of my submission, I wanted to express concern as to the access and egress of vehicular traffic in the street, and more particularly the lack of adequate parking and the safety issues arising from the constant flow of traffic and parking. Now, in my view, if Burgess Street is to accommodate community services and amenities, the broader question may be put as to whether it is appropriate that the street, being a cul-de-sac, is the appropriate place, and moreover, without even any pedestrian or cycling thoroughfare. I might add, Mr. Sinclair, and Susan will perhaps inform you further, that Burgess Street is quite a short street. It's a cul-de-sac, and I'm not perhaps precise in my measurement, but I don't think it's much longer than 200 meters. So you will see we're dealing with a kind of a closed-in area. Now, as alluded to by Susan, the current use of Burgess Street from an institutional point of view involves a kindergarten, the New South Wales Rural Fire Service, a men's shed, and other community groups. And in addition, there's the residential aspect. There are 2 residences fronting onto Burgess Street, and then there are a string of, I think, four houses which back onto Burgess Street, but front on Erith Street. The point being that even the ones that back onto Erith Street use, I beg your pardon, who front onto Erith Street would use Burgess Street for their vehicular access. So you'll see then it's quite a lively street, we can say, in terms of the proposed use. And I want to be on record in saying that I'm not against it being a lively street. It's not that I'm against activities, but I do think that when you have and you encourage certain activities, you have to take appropriate steps such that those activities can be conducted appropriately, correctly, and more particularly safely. So the main thrust of my submission is that attention needs to be given to the vehicular access and parking. I highlight in my submission that the volume of traffic in this very short street is really quite, well, it's surprising. And also, as well as the people who are deliberately turning into the street, there's a lot of people who turn into the street assuming that they can go somewhere and don't, and therefore have to come in and turn. Now, there's no turning circle at the bottom of this cul-de-sac, and also, as I think I mentioned in my, as I do mention in my submission, the street is only partially curbed and gutted. So the other point to be made is that there's no off-street parking. Neither the kindergarten, the fire station, nor the men's shed have off-street parking as such. And indeed, some residents have been told by people attending those institutions that they have the right to park in the street. I mean, of course they do, but sometimes it has caused some degree of displeasure, especially where people have seen the need to park across people's driveways. So you can see there's an issue here. I don't want to overstate it, but there is an issue. And to the extent that there's an issue now, my concern is that that issue is going to increase and become exacerbated. So in highlighting these issues then, I keep coming back to the point that we have to appreciate that Burgess Street is a cul-de-sac. And I don't know, Susan, you may have a better idea of the length of the street, but it's also a very short street. So in summary, and this is what I've more or less written in my submission to you, the underlying concern of the submission is that the success of the currently established amenities is such that Burgess Street will inevitably become increasingly busy with traffic and the accompanying need for parking. Unless addressed, this will produce negative effects on existing operations, on any proposed future operations, as well as on the existing residential use. The use of vehicular access to Burgess Street, the issue, I beg your pardon, of vehicular access to Burgess Street is exacerbated by the fact that Burgess Street lacks sufficient on-street parking and is only partially curbed and lacks any turning circle at its end. If Burgess Street is to accommodate community services and amenities, the broader question, I would say, is whether it's appropriate that this street, as a cul-de-sac, is the appropriate place for such a number of institutions and establishments to be without any pedestrian or cycling thoroughfare at its base. And I think I may also mention that given that a lot of people enter the street for various reasons, and there's only one way of entry and exit, then it only needs some kind of problem at the end of Burgess Street and its junction with Elsmore Street to disrupt, for example, the fire brigade, the men's shed, and the kindergarten. And I just want to mention, in particular, in respect of the kindergarten, that it worries me when I see the kindergarten every day, as I do because I'm a local resident. It is normal procedure for cars to drop off their children, absolutely normal, of course. And so there's a constant toing and froing and dropping off of children and parents and children crossing the road. So I think I've made my point that it's a busy road, and I think the traffic and the parking issue has to be addressed. Now, if you allow me just to continue a short while longer, because I feel I have to tell you why my little picture of Burgess Street has relevance to this reclassification. Now, it's said amongst the various submissions that it's anticipated that there will be increased use because when the strip of land is reclassified, it's regarded as being likely that there will be a storage facility built, or more generally, it will be just more useful for the community groups. So therefore, it's anticipated through the papers and reading the papers that there would be an increased use of Burgess Street. So what I'm putting to you is that if now we have issues that are not being properly addressed or catered for, then these issues are going to be exacerbated when the facility is expanded at 711 Burgess Street. Now, to my mind, whilst this is just a mere reclassification of a narrow strip of land, I do think that it's useful that we now put this reclassification into a broader focus. And I do believe it's really serendipitous that the council looks at this reclassification again, but in a broader sense and understanding the wider implications. So that's why I wanted to draw that little picture for you of Burgess Street, which, by the way, is a delightful street to live in, but it just presents issues that I'm concerned will need to be addressed for the benefit of all. Now, if I can just look at the actual reclassification issue itself. Currently, there's a strip of land, which I understand is for community use. Now, unfortunately, I have to say that strip of land, which is meant to be community, is in fact fenced off. So I think that's rather unfortunate because as community land, it would have been probably useful to test its capacity as as access to the park, but that's not been permitted because for some reason it's been fenced off. I query, I simply don't know when I pose the question whether it is normal to fence off community use land, but I just leave that with you. I don't know the answer. But currently, we have, it's community land. Now, the proposals in the papers before us anticipate that the land, when it's reclassified, will accommodate a storage facility, or it will provide some kind of facilities additional for the community's use. Now, I would be concerned to know whether, when a structure is to be constructed on this new area, would one know about it? To what extent are approvals required? Because I think that would influence whether people, particularly the people of the street, are happy with what is going to happen. Because it seems to me this is not just going to remain a strip of land, it's going to be used. And I think people would have the interest and indeed the right to know what kind of structure is going to be built there. I know I'm talking on here, Susan and Ian, but if you feel the need to interrupt me or clarify something I've said, if you can help me, I'm very prepared to be assisted in this. But I would like to pose the question as to what approvals are necessary, because I do notice just in the last week that another shed has been constructed at the men's shed facility. I don't know whether that has to be approved or not, but I assume it is. But this is why the question is at the front of my mind right now. Now, as to this strip of land, going through the papers, I see the questions posed: why does this strip of land exist? Well, and it was a former road that was closed in 2018, and that former road would have joined with an unformed extension of Old Wingello Road. Now, as I understand it, this unformed extension of Old Wingello Road is still on the books. So I'm a little bit concerned as to whether we need to look a little bit further into the future rather than just addressing immediate needs now. I see in the past papers that when the council voted on closing the road, they said it was to ensure consistency with council land, because I'm not sure to ensure consistency is really the best of reasons, but I do note that when the council considered the matter in April 2017, they did say the newly created lot will vest as community land. It seems to me that it was not a bad decision to vest it as community land. I don't know why we assume, I don't say we do, but there is an implication this was somehow a mistake. I don't see that it was necessarily a mistake to leave it as community land. Now, what I am a little bit unclear on is when you look at the map at page 6 of in the papers that were delivered to us, there is a map showing the strip of land. Now, we are just talking about a strip, I think, of some 400, about 40 meters in. It's about 40 meters by 10 meters. So I'm really not sure what's happening to the rest of the former road. As I understand it, we're just dealing with about 40 by 4 meter stretch, which would give access to Burgess Street. So I just leave that question hanging because I'm not sure what happens to the rest of the road. And I would be interested to know, and I think anyone looking at the matter more generally would need to know whether it's anticipated that there will be whether that area will remain a park, or whether on one side of it there may even end up being some kind of housing estate. I simply don't know. But by reference to the map,
I don't think there's any.
Yeah.
The report doesn't mention any need or any description at all of future housing in the area, and council owns the land, and I'm unaware of anything like that, and that would need to come back a later date. All we're being asked to do is to reclassify this little strip of land.
Yes. No, and
a small parcel.
Yeah. Thank you, Ian. I understand that. I'm not trying to widen the approval. I'm simply saying that if one part is reclassified, would that bring about the necessity to reclassify the other? And I think probably not, because it's the other parts should still remain community land.
Yeah, the other part is community land at the moment. If I can just answer that.
Yes.
I can answer this.
Yeah.
Hang on, excuse me. The land in question is bounded by land that's used by organisations that wish to enter into a lease with the council to use that for operational purposes. And so the council is going through the process of identifying that, and this is why we're asking for community input for the process to reclassify. You put your submission in, and now we've heard what you've had to say. So so that's what's going to happen. The other land, it's not proposed to. It's only proposed this small part, isn't it, Susan?
That's correct. Yes, it is.
But sorry, I just want to then finish though on this particular matter, because you see, the reason that I talk about the rest of the road is that, of course, the particular stretch that we're talking about now is a significant one in terms of access to Burgess Street. Now, I don't know whether that little strip could, for example, end up being used as off-street parking, which might actually resolve some of the issues. But the point is, that's where it's the part that joins Burgess Street, which I think poses a query, because it seems to me that, put positively, that strip of land at the bottom of Burgess Street could provide pedestrian access or a cycling thoroughfare or to the park. Equally, on the other side, there is a new housing estate, so it could provide easier access through the bottom of Burgess Street for people to go to the station. And I think what I'm getting at is that whilst we're looking at this particular matter in a narrow way, which I perfectly understand, and I don't want to unnecessarily be an obstacle to things, but I can't help thinking of I think it's appropriate to evoke, and Ian, I'm sure you've heard this before, the notion of the Chesterton fence principle. You don't remove a fence until you know why it was put up in the first place. And I just have the feeling that the planners of by making that strip of land access to the bottom of Burgess Street, were pretty wise. And I think it should be an access strip. We don't really know what is going to happen. If, for example, Old Wingello Road was made into a formed road, well then we would want to have this strip of road to be a road to be accessed to Burgess Street in the future. So
it's my understanding that the road. It's my understanding. I don't want to cut you off, but it's my understanding that the road has been closed already. So that ship has sailed. The road is already closed, so it can't be reopened. It needs a different process to reopen it, and all it's been doing. And you rightly pointed out that there is a fence across it at the moment. A road has been closed. Once a road has been closed, it can be fenced off and other issues associated with that. I think I think what you're trying to talk about is slightly much bigger picture than what we're dealing with here. And unfortunately, the road has already been closed, and all we're dealing with here is the reclassification of the land to enable it to be incorporated with the surrounding uses.
Yes, no, I understand that, but with respect, I would say that it's not inappropriate to look to the wider issue here, because I can certainly see that in a few, maybe months or years, people will say, well, why did we not keep an access to the bottom of Burgess Street? Why did we do this? And I think that's a significant question to put. Especially, we've got, as I've said, the street is a busy street, but even if it weren't a busy street, it seems to me that the planners of the past have had something in mind, and I don't see why we should necessarily turn that on its head when respecting the fact of that strip of community land may well serve us better in the future. So I know I've probably spoken too long, Ian, but I just wanted to make those points.
I'm just wanting to work out if there's any other issues that you'd like to raise that you haven't already raised.
No, but I suppose if I therefore need to say if I want to make clear why I submitted my submission, it would be that I actually would oppose the reclassification. I think it should remain as community land.
Okay, thank you. I'm just writing that down.
Yeah.
While you do that, Ian, I'll just come in to explain to Christopher that I've made some notes and I'll endeavour to get answers to the questions, and I'll include those in the report to council so that it's on the record that that your questions, Christopher, were addressed. I'll endeavour to get that information for you and include it in the report.
I too have taken.
Thank you.
I too have taken notes of what you've been saying, and I'll be including that in my report on this public hearing.
Thank you very much, Ian.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we don't have any other late people wanting to give a talk.
No, I haven't heard from anybody else. So that would conclude the public hearing in terms of people wishing to address the hearing. So I'd like to thank Christopher for his participation, and it's always nice to see a matter dealt with in a broader context. I don't think there's a strategic planner around who wouldn't appreciate that approach. So in some cases, Ian is correct in that we're dealing with matters that have already taken a certain course, but that doesn't mean that we can't still ask questions and hopefully get some answers for you, and in the process satisfy ourselves that that this is what we want to do. So thank you very much, Christopher, and thank you, Ian, for facilitating the public hearing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak.
No, thank you, Christopher. So that would conclude the public hearing and the live streaming of this meeting. So a good evening to anyone who was watching, and also to those of you who are with us now. So thank you all.